Shalom Israel, Yahweh Ba'ashim Nashai Barakatham, Yahweh Shamar Latham Ba'ashim Yahushai. We're the Israelites School of Universal Practical Knowledge, coming out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. And since 1969, we have been teaching that the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians are the real Jews of the Bible. And that's part of the class today. We're going to prove through the Bible with evidence that the so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native American Indians are the Israelites. Okay? We're going to show that. And then we're also going to go over Paul, the Apostle Paul. We're going to show the truth about Paul that you have never learned. We're going to go over facts about Paul according to the Bible. We're going to break it all down so that you can understand the truth about Paul. And that's going to be the class today, all right? So first, we're going to go over who are the Israelites according to the Bible. So first, we're going to go to Matthew's 28 and 15. Actually, let's go to Matthew's 28 and 1. Matthew 28. Let me get there with you first, brother, before you start reading. All right, Matthew's 28 and 1. You can go get it up. Just see who it is first. Who is it? All right. One second. Hold tight. We'll continue with the class shortly. One second. It's a lot. All right, so let's get Matthew's 28 and 1. One second. Let me get there with you first. All right, go ahead and read it. Matthew's 28 and 1.
This is the book of Matthew, chapter 28, verse 1. In the end of the Sabbath.
Deuteronomy. Did I say Matthew? Salaki. I meant Deuteronomy 28 and 1. All right.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments.
So what is that saying right there? Let's break that down. Very simple, right? But I just want to make sure y'all brothers are in class, so we can break that down what it's saying right there. And if you can read louder too when you read, put some strength to your voice. Want to try to break it down? The part that you just read.
I'll break it down. I believe it's saying that if we was to listen to the Most High God, that he would He would set us on high above all nations.
That's not what it's saying, right? You got to break down what you read only. That's what I'm asking. Read it again.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
Stop. What is that saying?
I don't want to say if you are to listen to the Most High God.
Right. If you listen to the Most High, your God. So the Most High is speaking to everybody.
Now he speaks to someone that's specifically.
Who's that?
The house of Israel.
How do you know that?
Because he only dealt with one nation.
Right. This is when Moses was speaking to the nation of Israel after he took them out of Egypt, out of captivity. Right. The Lord took us out of captivity, and he chose Moses to lead us out of captivity. Right. So here the Lord is speaking to not everyone. He's speaking to the nation of Israel through his servant Moses at the time. Right. And he's saying, and Moses is telling the Israelites what the Lord wants him to tell his people, which is, if you hearken diligently unto the words of the Lord thy God. Keep going.
To observe and to do all his commandments, which I commanded thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth.
So what the Lord is telling us, or was telling us, is that if we obey him, right? That's what it's saying. If we obey his word, his laws, and his commandments, which are inside of the Bible, we would be above all people on the face of the earth. Meaning we will be the most powerful nation on the planet. We would be over everyone. We would be ruling everyone. They would be under us. We would be the ruling government. They would be under our authority. You understand? So now, what nation on earth is ruling the planet right now?
I would say the Edomites.
The Edomites, so-called oppressor, the so-called white man, right? That's a term that people watching online will be more familiar with. The white man is the one in power in this earth. You understand? How do you know he's in power? Because you could just look through history. You understand? This land was once the so-called Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas. We were here at one point, and we had a civilization, and we were inhabiting this land, and we had a way to live. We didn't need anyone to come and change what we had, because what we had was perfect, right? It wasn't, I wouldn't say perfect according to the Bible, but it was a running society that was functioning properly, where kids were being raised, families were being created, culture was there, how to plant, how to eat. You understand? It was a civilization. Go ahead.
Like, sir, like even the technology of that time was even more advanced than like Rome,
right?
Like that they say.
It was also more advanced than the civilization, and the way we were living was more advanced than the civilization of the people that came to this land. You understand? Right. They wouldn't shower, they wouldn't floss their teeth, they wouldn't brush their teeth, they wouldn't wash their clothes for months. You understand? They wouldn't take showers for months. You understand? So when they came here, it was amazing to them. This is all, what I'm saying is all that I've read through reading history on it. You understand? They came here, they were amazed by what they saw. They were amazed by our culture, the way we're living. We would wash our clothes. We would, we knew how to plant and crop and all these things. We knew how to survive on this land. They didn't know. They came here, took the land, right? They enslaved the so-called African Americans. Even to this day, they live by something called white supremacy. You understand? Something called white supremacy. They live by it. You understand? So when you look at what's really going on in the world, the people who are ruling the planet is the oppressor. Now, is the oppressor obeying the laws and commandments of the Most High God? How do you know he's not obeying the commandments?
Because the law was never given to him.
The law was never given to him. That's absolutely true. The law was only given to the Israelites, right?
Right.
But you can look at his actions. You understand? Who pushes Thanksgiving? The government.
Right.
The government is ran by the Edomites, right? The oppressors. They're the ones who run the government. They run America, which is why they have you celebrating Thanksgiving, because it's remembering when they came and supposedly came together with the Native Americans in peace, and then how they came to this land and shifted over here and migrated here and established their future here.
Right.
That's why we celebrate it. You understand? But what really happened is they slaughtered and destroyed families, nations, millions of innocent people, not animals, people who were civilized people. You understand? Your forefathers,
Right.
who we descend from. Go ahead.
So like I said, like they would even they had like a prize for like each native or Native American that they would catch. They had a prize for the scalp, and that motivated more Edomites to go out and just unalive people,
Right.
just to get more money. Right.
And listen, you can look that up. The brother's not making that up. You can look these things up through history. You understand? Like, another thing is, after Christopher Columbus came here and he went back to receive the honor of being someone who came to this part of the land of the world that people were afraid to come to, they thought there was no land here. So when he went back, they wanted some of that glory also, and that's when you had the conquistadors come over here. All the Hernan Cortez and all these other conquistadors, they came because they wanted a piece of the pie too.
Pedro de Alvarado.
Yeah, all of them, all those Spaniards, right? Pizarro, all of them, they all came because it was a domino effect from what Columbus did. You understand? So they wanted to come and get some of that glory, some of that power. You understand? So they're the ones ruling the earth today, but they're not obeying the laws and commandments of God, which means what?
They are the wicked.
No. We just read where the Lord said, go ahead.
They're not the chosen.
They're not the chosen people. You understand? Because the Bible says that if the Israelites obey God, if they keep the laws in the Bible, they would be above all other people. Now, we know the oppressor does not obey God because the Lord never said in the Bible to celebrate Thanksgiving. He says to celebrate the Passover. I don't see the Passover being pushed every year in commercials. I don't see it being pushed at Target the way Christmas is pushed, the way Halloween is pushed. These are holidays that they have created because this is their world. If they were the chosen people, they fit one attribute. They are ruling the world. They are above all other people, but they're not keeping the laws. So that tells you they're not God's chosen people. You understand? So that's number one, because people think that the so-called Edomites in Jerusalem are the real Jews. They believe that they are the real Jews.
Right.
You understand? But that's not true. You understand? If that was true, then the Edomites in America, they would be keeping the laws and the commandments.
Right.
Because they're in power.
Yeah.
But they're not in power because they serve God. They're in power because we are not obeying God. That's why they're on top. Not because they're stronger, not because God is with them, not because they're smarter than you, simply because we are not serving our Lord, our God, so God has not took them off of our backs. You understand? That's why. That's the only reason why they're in rulership. You understand? So now with that, let's go to let's go to verse 15. Same chapter, verse 15. Come.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
If you will not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, meaning if we do not obey our God and keep the laws and commandments in the Bible. You understand? That's how we see it now. But at that time, when we're living at that time, it was actually words straight from Moses. You understand? From the Lord to Moses, telling us you got to do this, you got to live this way, you can't do this, you can do that, giving us the laws. Same, but today is different because we're reading it out of the Bible. But it's the same thing applies. You understand? Keep going.
To observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I commanded thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee.
So what is that saying? Go ahead.
It's saying if we don't hearken, if we don't listen to our God, that He's going to punish us. He's going to send curses upon us.
He's going to send curses upon us, right? So now you have to ask yourself, what people on earth seem to be under curses today? I know for sure it's not the oppressor.
Right.
He's not cursed. He's living a great life. You understand? I just saw a post where I don't know the right term. Is the right term transgender? Is that a correct term? Transgender, right? I don't want to offend people watching, right. But they said that that straight men need to start dating trans women to fight hate against transgenders. That's them. They're not suffering God. You understand? When you can push that kind of stuff, you are in heaven because you're doing what you want to do. You're getting what you want. You understand? Even though it's not according to what God wants, you get what you want. You're a man, and now you become a woman, and now you even have the right to say straight men need to date us to fight our oppression. You understand? So they're not the ones in oppression. They're not the ones under curses. You understand? But who is under curses? What people have suffered are still suffering today. Anybody want to give some examples?
I know it's the Hispanics,
right?
The Native Americans,
right?
The blacks in the ghettos that's going through drugs.
Yeah,
that's being prostituted in order to put something on the table to feed their young. It's the people that's struggling for $1.
Right. Okay, that's true. But of course, you have to provide your argument. You understand? You got to give proof. Because to somebody on the street, that's your opinion. That's your own opinion, or that could be your claim, something you claiming. But it's only an opinion and a claim. But once you add evidence, once you add facts, now you have an argument. Once you have evidence and facts, now you can say this is the truth. And that's what we do in the UPK. That's why we say it, because we've done the research. We looked through history. Even in today's time, it's undeniable who today in earth is suffering punishment, is suffering injustice, suffering things that no other nation is suffering. You understand? And there's a so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. You understand?
Right.
Who, like, when you go back, you can even go back to when I think it was Palestine or Iraq, they got overthrown, and the U.S. troops had to leave that place. This happened recently. It got overthrown. Afghanistan, right? It was being ruled by America, and then they overthrew it, and the soldiers fled. Joe Biden told them everybody needs to leave Afghanistan. They've taken over.
Right.
And even the people of Afghanistan who were a part of America, meaning they fled, and the Afghanistanians were the ones that fled. They were the ones who were on the side of the Americans when they were in that land.
Right.
They abided by their laws. Go ahead.
They were even falling off the planes, like because they were
Yeah.
so afraid of the new power
Right.
of the country. They were so afraid that they wanted to flee. They were even falling off the planes
Right.
in midair.
Right, because they knew that they were traitors, and they knew that the new government were not traitors. They were all about their people. So they knew that they were going to get killed, they were going to get judged. So they wanted to escape with the Americans and come to America. And a lot of them did come to America. You understand? And no, I haven't seen any news come up saying send them back to Afghanistan.
Right.
I haven't seen anything say stop Afghanistan hate. I haven't seen them lynch people from Afghanistan. I haven't seen Afghanistanians get pulled over by the police and get shot. You understand? I haven't seen none of that. But what I do see is that happening to so-called black people. What I do see is so-called Latinos coming to this land that was once ours and being treated like garbage, not being appreciated for the things that we've done for this place. You understand? So-called Native Americans, same thing with them. This is once their land. They helped the people that came to this land live on this land. Without that, Europeans today would not be here. You would not exist if it wasn't for the natives showing your forefathers how to live on this land. And what did your forefathers do? They killed and murdered them when they could have lived amongst the Native Americans. They could have lived, as neighbors. But your forefathers did not want that. They had greed in their hearts. They had deceit. They had no shame. You understand? So when you look into history, you're gonna find out that the only people that are actually suffering curses are not oppressors, are not Chinese people, is not anyone else, but it's Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans. I'll give another example. Did y'all hear about the Stop Asian Hate?
Yeah.
Right? That happened. And what happened? They got protection from the government. Go ahead.
Just because one, can I say China or Chinese woman, right?
Right, one Chinese woman.
She got beat up, no?
Yeah, she got assaulted, right? And it was caught on camera, right? That happened. Asian hate popped up in the news, on the internet. And listen, I understand. I would do the same thing for my people. Stand up for your people, protect your people. That's understandable. But they gave them justice immediately. You don't see no more saying stop Asian hate anymore because the hate has stopped. Joe Biden went on television and brought it up and brought it to the world's attention to stop. I didn't hear anybody say stop all hate. No. But when the phrase came up, Black Lives Matter, even though the UPK does not support that organization, I don't even think it exists anymore. We don't support them. We're not affiliated with anybody. I'm saying this to make a point, right?
Right.
What did they say?
The Black Lives?
When people were like, Black Lives Matter, what did other people respond?
It was like all lives matter.
They said all lives matter.
Well,
That's what does that tell you?
They don't really care.
They don't care.
Black lives.
Yeah.
They just care about them.
Now that they care about them, they don't give a damn about you.
Right.
You understand? Because you're the one getting killed by the police. You got Breonna Taylor. You got Tamir Rice, a young boy at the park with a toy gun. Damn police officer pulls up like Rambo, runs through the grass of the park on the damn sidewalk, hops out, shoots the little kid. But you're supposed to be a police officer. You're supposed to be trained. You're supposed to be someone who has composure, who's calm, who knows how to handle situations. But you roll up and see a kid and shoot him. That was an intentional murder. How you murdered that young kid. You understand? Right. You have Breonna Taylor. You have Botham Jean, that white woman supposedly thought she was in her own apartment, walking into her own apartment. And she walked into this brother's apartment and shot him. You understand? When she knew that wasn't her apartment.
Right.
Right?
Is that the same one where the judge hugged of that woman.
That's the same one where the judge stepped down, gave that murderer a Bible, and combed her hair. You understand? That's what happened. So when you look at reality, you're going to see that the people who are actually suffering, that you could say are suffering curses, are so-called black people, are so-called Native Americans, are so-called Hispanics. You understand? So now, with that being said, we're going to read some of the curses that God told us would happen to us, to the Israelites, if we disobey him. And we're going to see if any of us are suffering those curses. You understand? So let's go to verse 32. Go ahead.
32.
Come. No sweat. Just make sure you have your phone on silent when you're in class. No sweat.
This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
By what?
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. You understand? Which one of you brothers or who online can say how that relates to who that relates to today? If you could give some examples.
Child services.
Child services?
Right. Would that be an example?
Colin, that's an example. You understand? I would bring up how the children of parents who cross the border are taken away from them, and they're put in child detention centers. They're put in the ICE detention centers. You understand? That's straight up, literally what that verse is about to describe. Look, keep going.
And thine eyes shall look and fail with longing.
And that's what happens when they take those kids away from those parents at the border. All they do is long for their child. There's a man who was in the detention center and he committed suicide because they took his son from him. Right. He killed himself because he couldn't stand the pain of not having his son with him. So he killed himself in the detention center. Why? Because of this right here. You understand? Because we're not serving our God. So because of that, we're suffering these curses.
Right.
Keep going.
With longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand.
And there shall be no might in thine hand. And they don't have the power to say, no, you're not taking my child. You understand? Their children get taken away from them, and they don't have any might in their hand to say otherwise. You understand? This has been going on for a very long time. This happened with the so-called black people, right? Their children were taken away in slavery. You understand? Even our kids too. When they came over here, Christopher Columbus started a sex trade with children, with the native children. You understand? You can look that up. Put that in your Google and look that up. How Christopher Columbus was selling the children as sex slaves. You understand? Read it again.
And there shall be no might in thine hand.
From the top.
Slide. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Keep going.
Just 1 second. I'm trying to look up a statistics. Let me see real quick if I can find something. All right, so I'm going to read this. This is from PBS News Hour. All right. Published February 6, 2023. Hundreds of migrant children remain separated from families despite push to reunite them. It's been 2 years since the Biden administration took on the task of reunifying children with their families after they were separated at the southern border under the Trump administration's zero tolerance policy. Read that again.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. That's exactly what happened with Donald Trump's administration, the zero tolerance policy. The children that belonged to parents were taken away from them. You understand? And it says here, it's been 2 years since the Biden administration took on the task of reuniting children with their families after they were separated at the southern border under the Trump administration's zero tolerance policy. You understand? The Lord also said that we will be under these type of people like Donald Trump. You understand? Read verse 42. We're going to show you where it says that. Go ahead.
Deuteronomy 28 and 42. All thy trees and fruit of thy land.
45.
45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee.
Read 40. I'm trying to find where it's at.
40. Verse 40. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coast, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit.
Let's see. Oh, I think it's right here. Okay, 49.
49.
Okay, 50. Verse 50. No, wait. Read 49 first.
Come. Deuteronomy 28 and 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee.
The what?
Shall bring a nation against thee.
The Lord shall bring a nation against thee.
Right.
You understand? There's a nation that's going to be against the Israelites for disobeying the Lord.
Right.
You understand? Against, meaning they're not going to be on your side. They're going to be working against you.
Right.
That's what happened when the conquistadors came to this land. That's what happened when the oppressors put chains on the so-called black people and enslaved them. When they went to West Africa and put them in ships and in chains. That was a nation that the Lord sent against them for disobeying his commandments.
Right.
When Christopher Columbus came to this land, that was the Lord sending him to this land to enslave his children who were disobedient. You understand?
Right.
They might have not known they were God's people because over time they lost their culture coming to this land, fleeing slavery in Assyria. But listen, it had to happen because we were not serving our God anymore.
And it's crazy because at that particular time, it was only so-called blacks, right, and Hispanics that it was happening to. Like if you check out right the timeline, nobody else was getting like basically
enslaved.
kidnapped, enslaved, right? Not like the Chinese, right? The Japanese, the Arab, they were all part of the slave trade, right? From taking
say that again.
That basically every other nation, right, took a part or had a part in the enslavement, right?
So you're saying every other nation was taking part of the enslavement of black people and the so-called Latinos.
Right.
And the only people at that time who were being enslaved was those two categorized people.
Like the Native Americans and the Hispanics and the so-called African Americans.
And are you making that up?
No, sir.
Where did you read that?
Well, when you check on history, right?
So you read that somewhere?
Right.
Okay.
So I think it's called it goes by a different name, right? The slave trade that they did, the Arabs, the sub-Saharan slave trade. There we go.
There you go. Yeah.
And that's the one where the Arabs were taking so-called African Americans from the West Coast to Asia and all those areas.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
Right.
Understand? So that's evidence right there. You understand? And that's what you're gonna find when you dig into the history like this brother has done. You're gonna start to see. You're gonna start to put lines together, put dots together. Hold on, the Arabs were working with the white man.
Right.
The white man didn't just take regular Africans. He took specific people in the west side of Africa because that's where the so-called Israelites fled into when they were being chased down by the Romans. Right.
Right.
So with that being said, like I was saying, that's what the Lord sent against us. It wasn't just the oppressor. It was the Arabs, the Chinese, right?
Right.
But specifically what I'm talking about right now is how the conquistadors came to our land.
Spaniards.
That's what the Lord wanted. It was because it's prophecy. You understand? And even to this day, the descendants of those people, the descendants of the Moabites, of the Ammonites, they're here today and they're still oppressing us. Right? They come into our neighborhoods, build their businesses, make money off of us, don't respect us, get rich off of us, and go back home and feed their kids and send them to college. You had that rapper, this Chinese rapper, what's his name? China Mac. He's an example. They were doing an interview on China Mac, and they were saying how he was saying how in his community, when they get drugs, they don't spread it to their own people within their community. They take the drugs and spread them outside of their community. You understand?
Right. The complete opposite
of what we do.
Yeah. We do.
Right. And the point is, they sell drugs to us. They're not going to do it to their own.
Right.
These are the nations that the Lord sent against us. And this is an example right here. Donald Trump with his zero tolerance policy. He's a nation sent against us, nation of Edom. And he put that zero tolerance policy, and he was separating children from parents. It was all over the news every day. This child has died in the ICE detention center. This father committed suicide. You can go read the articles right now on how they were being treated in those detention centers under Donald Trump's authority. They were not being given water. The children were not being properly taken care of. They were not changing their diapers. They were peeing their diapers. They were saying that they had to drink water from the toilet. Right. The staffs were touching children. And this was under Donald Trump's authority. He wasn't saying anything to help them out. He was saying bad things. You understand? He didn't give them blankets. He gave them foil blankets. You understand why? Because it's in the scriptures. You understand? Which gives more proof who the Israelites are today. You understand? Keep reading.
And the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
All right, stop right there. Let's go back to the verse 32. And I'm going to keep reading this article up there, all right? While the Biden administration has succeeded in uniting some 600 children with their parents, about 1,000 remain separated. So these are children who have been separated from their parents and have not been reunited. You understand? I was reading an article where the children, somebody would come into these areas, into these places where they can get a child who belongs to a parent that was separated from them at the border.
Right.
And they weren't doing background checks on these people. They weren't checking their backgrounds to see who they were, if they had criminal records. They would just come in, claim the child, and give that child to that person. So imagine these are thousands of children, probably more children, taken from their parents, given to someone else, and they lost track of these children. They don't know where they are because they're supposed to keep track of them. They're supposed to check in on them, right. Where they at, how they doing. You understand? They're supposed to check up on them just to make sure they're good. And they lost track of these children. That's why they're trying to reunite the children with their families, because they lost track. Which shows you that they didn't give a damn about these children.
It's like they're just doing it to like have it on paper, right, or like on record,
right?
Like the children, right? Because they lost track.
They lost track of the children. They weren't doing their job properly. Right. They were just giving children out like it was goddamn candy.
They didn't care about really.
They didn't really care.
Parents reunite.
Because if they did, we wouldn't be reading this of them trying to fix their mistakes that was done under Donald Trump. Now you have Joe Biden trying to fix it supposedly, but of course he's doing it to not look bad. You understand? So we'll keep reading. Geoff Bennett spoke with Caitlin Dickerson about the process. It's been 2 years since the Biden administration took on the task of reconnecting children with their families after they were split up at the southern border under the Trump administration's zero tolerance policy. While the Biden White House has succeeded, we read that. Let's see. Okay. Conversations. See. That's right. So these numbers are a moving target, and I actually wanted to clarify. You initially mentioned about 1,000 children who have yet to be reunified. That's the number we are hearing from the Biden administration, but immigrant advocates would push back because the Biden administration is only considering a subset of those total families who were separated under the Trump administration, and that's the number of which they're pursuing their work. Meaning, it's not only 1,000 children. That's just the children that they're working on. You understand? So there's more children missing, but they're only working on a select few. You understand? That total number is about 3,900. But as you mentioned, actually more than 5,000 families were separated. You understand? More than 5,000 families. So that could be 10,000, right. 15,000. You understand? Were separated. Some of those were excluded from the federal court case that required these reunifications. So a lot of these families didn't even get the chance to be united. A lot of them are going to remain unhelped by the Biden administration. You understand? That's what it's saying. They were excluded from the federal court case that requires these reunifications. So you need to have a court case to be reunified. So a lot of them ain't even going to get that help. You see that? So that's literally what it's saying in this verse. We read it again.
Deuteronomy 28 and 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them.
And thy eyes shall look and fail with longing for them. What else is that talking about? Child support. With this child support going on. What people don't know about child support is it's a terrible thing to have child support in your family because you're involving people who don't care about your child. You understand? People who didn't give birth to that child. You understand? So you should never, ever put your man on child support. Right? That's what this is talking about also. Your child is being taken from you and being put in the hands of another people. Now you have to go to court and ask permission to see your child. And of course, the woman, she's going to be on the side of the oppressor. She's going to squeeze all the money out of you. You understand? You're going to be broke. She's not going to care. She's going to have power over you because the oppressor has given her power over you. Because you had a child with this woman. You understand? So these are curses that we are going through. I didn't see the children being separated from the people from Afghanistan. You understand? I don't see the immigrants that come from China, their children being separated from them. Apparently, Donald Trump only has an issue with so-called Latinos, not with Asian immigrants, not with German immigrants. You understand? Specifically with Latinos, Hispanics. Why? Because of what the Bible says. That's why. You understand? Now let's go to verse 68.
Read.
Go ahead, bro.
Deuteronomy 28 and 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
Why is it saying that the Lord will bring us? Why is Moses telling the Israelites that the Lord is going to bring them or us into Egypt again? What does that mean?
I believe I want the term for Egypt means bondage.
It does mean bondage. Egypt means bondage, right? Now let's be logical about it, though. Does it mean that the Lord is going to send them back into Egypt?
To that land,
to the land that they just came out of.
Sir.
All right, keep reading.
Into Egypt again with ships.
So the Lord is saying to the Israelites, if y'all don't keep my commandments, if y'all disobey me, after I just took, so you got to think about what's going on. The Lord just took us out of slavery, destroyed the Egyptians, killed them all, drowned them, freed us out of there. You understand? So now he's like, look, y'all gonna have to obey me. I'm your God. You understand? Y'all seen what I just did to them. Y'all seen what I just did for y'all. If y'all disobey me, I'm gonna send y'all back into Egypt in ships. Now, where they were at that time, there's no water between them and Egypt. You understand? There's no water. So it is, you're right, Egypt means bondage. So the Lord is saying, I'm gonna put you in bondage again with ships. You understand? Now you gotta ask yourself, what nation of people on a large scale to where it stands out from other events, similar events? What people have been put in ships to go be taken into slavery and captivity?
The Native American Indians.
The Native American Indians.
The blacks.
So-called black people.
The Hispanics.
So-called Hispanics. And this wasn't a small thing. This wasn't black. It wasn't 5 black slaves in a small canoe boat.
Right.
It was a manufactured, well-constructed, well-planned
Industry.
Documented the industry. It was a big thing. Tons and tons and tons, man, of so-called black people brought to America in ships. So many black people, so many of them in the damn boat, they had to throw some off because the big ship that they were in was sinking.
Right. And so like I think a brother from another channel, right, from the school,
Yeah.
I think was bringing it out that the trade or the routes, right, that these
ships were going.
Yeah, that these ships were going, that they were throwing out so many bodies, right, that the sharks literally, from memory, they knew the routes to where the bodies were, and through time, right, they taught, I guess, like they're young. This is where you get food, right? This is where you get free food, right?
Yeah, that's listen. You can look that up too. That's not a lie. I heard. You know how many times I heard that? That's how many brothers were being dropped off the ship to where the sharks in the ocean. It was so many brothers being thrown. So many people. So many Israelites, so-called slaves, our brothers being thrown off those ships. That the brothers saying that the sharks created a path to where the damn children of those sharks, they learned that path too. That's how many bodies were lost. Right. You understand? That's how big the slave trade was. Go ahead.
They say in the I hear Captain Kadazar used to always say over 99 million Jews was murdered. They said it was a lot of Jews died off the transatlantic slave trade.
Oh yes.
Just to piggyback off what the brother said about how the sharks would swim that same route. Yeah. That's crazy.
All right, I'm gonna read this real quick. Right, it says at the height of the slave trade in the 18th century, an estimated 6 million Africans were forced to make a journey across the Atlantic, often totaling over 4,000 miles. Now, you can't put 6 million people on one boat. So you got to imagine how many times they put brothers in those ships. 6 million is a lot, dog.
Or how many different boats it was.
How many boats they had to build. You know how many damn boats they built, dog? To take 6 million people across the sea, 400 miles. You go ahead.
That's that's not even counting the ones that sank.
The ones that sank.
The ones that sank and that didn't make the full trip.
You understand? Yeah. 4,000 miles. 6 million. You know how many boats they had to build? They had to have a blueprint on how to build the boats. They weren't just building random boats every time. All right, let's make a new boat. No, they said, hold on. You got to come up with a boat system, a blueprint, have people working, making the boats, paying them to make the boats. We got to get the wood from somewhere. It wasn't just just a fluke. This was what was the word you used?
Industry.
It was an industry, making money. They were making money. Go ahead. Yeah, you are.
I would be thinking as far as they would have the slaves make the boat.
Listen.
You know what I mean?
That sounds possible. You understand? You listen. You could look that up and see if that's true. You understand? I wouldn't be surprised. You understand? Let me keep reading real quick. Totaling over 4,000 miles, over 54,000 voyages were made in the course of 300 years. 54 voyages, 54,000 times they were going back and forth. That's not a small event.
Right.
You understand? That's not a small. Go ahead.
And not even that it would take damn months, right? Or whole damn a lot of months to get to one point and come back.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. 54,000 voyages were made in the course of 300 years between the 16th and the 19th century. The large proportion of slaves ended up in the Caribbean, approximately 42%. Around 38% went to Brazil, and much fewer, about 5%, went to North America. The journey from Africa to North America was the longest. The journey could take as little as 35 days, just over a month, going from Angola to Brazil, where normally British and French ships took 2 to 3 months. Come on, man. You understand? Don't make me pull out the damn Babylon and Timbuktu. I don't got it on me. You understand? But when you read the Babylon and Timbuktu, it talks about how the Israelites, the Jews, fled Jerusalem because in 70 AD, the Romans took over the land of Israel, took over Jerusalem. This is actual history. And what did the so-called Jews do? They fled into Africa, West Africa. And that's where these brothers were at. And these are the same brothers, the descendants of these people, these Israelites, so-called black people today. They're the ones who were put in these ships, in these boats. Why? Because we just read the prophecy that if we didn't obey our Lord, our God, he would put us in ships again and take us into bondage, into Egypt. And that's exactly what this whole slave trade was about. That's why it was so big. Because it happened because it was prophesied. The Lord ain't about to have five brothers be taken to slavery. No, it's gonna make it big, so you can know who this is. You understand?
Right. So like they estimate, right? They estimate that it's 90 million.
Yeah. Right.
But in reality, everyone knows it was way more than that.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't really know. They're not going down to the bottom and seeing counting out the bodies. You understand? So it says inside a ship, ships carried anything from 250 to 600 slaves. They were generally very overcrowded. In many ships, they were packed like spoons with no room even to turn. Although in some ships a slave could have a space about 5 feet 3 inches high and 4 feet 4 inches wide, the slaves were kept between the hold and the deck in the appalling condition. That's terrible, right? Like you packing goddamn chairs. You ever pack some chairs on top of each other? And they just stuck together? That's how it was.
Like sardines.
Like sardines, huh? And this happened 54,000 times.
Yeah.
4,000 miles like that. I just stuck there. No bathroom breaks. You understand? People dying. Women giving birth.
Right.
Your father getting thrown off the boat. No food, no water. They didn't have Starbucks. They didn't have a bakery in the ship. You know, they didn't have fruits and vegetables on the boat. Not for us, not for the brothers. That was a curse from the Most High. You understand?
Right.
It didn't happen because white people were better, because they were stronger, because they were smarter. It simply happened because we went away from our culture. You understand? Right. You gonna say something? You gonna say something?
Me? Yeah, like I was gonna say that even in that, right, that the brothers had to suffer through all that. They even had to worry sometimes that ships from another empire would attack them just to take the slaves for themselves and redistribute them to another area, right? Because I was reading that sometimes, I think it was the French or the English or something, they would attack the Dutch ships, take the slaves, and then take them somewhere else, right? And a whole bunch of them would die in the process, right? Because they were literally attacking the ship that they were on, right? And stuff like that. And like what you were saying right now, like you know that it was the Lord, right, doing all that, because literally Hernan Cortez, right? He came with like 50 men, 50 men or soldiers against millions of Aztecs. You get what I'm saying? And like, how could one man with 50 soldiers take down a whole empire? Right? It was the biggest empire here in the Americas, right? Before he came, right? And so, you know, like that's how you know that it was the Lord, right, that sent the oppressor, right?
Damn right, and that's what we're bringing out today in class. You understand? We're bringing out the truth about the Bible, and we're basing it off of facts, not off of what we think the Bible says, what we feel it says. We're not going based off of emotions. We're going based off of evaluation of what the Scripture says, and evaluating the facts of history. And it's clear who the Israelites are today. You understand? Right. Based on what the Bible says. You understand? So let me pull out some more stuff right here. All right, it says here, colonial enslavement of Native Americans included those who surrendered to. Study by a Brown University historian finds that Native Americans who surrendered during King Philip's War were sold into slavery with long-lasting effects. All right, let me see. A study by Lanford D. Fisher, Associate Professor of History at Brown University, finds that Native Americans, including non-combatants who surrendered during King Philip's War to avoid enslavement, were enslaved at nearly the same rate as captured combatants. Native American slavery is a piece of history of slavery that has been glossed over, Fisher said. Between 1492 and 1880, between 2 and 5.5 million Native Americans were enslaved in the Americas, in addition to 12.5 million African slaves. You understand? So the biggest What other nation are you gonna find that was enslaved with that many of that many?
No
Go look into the history of the Chinese, of the Arabs, of whatever other nation.
Japanese.
They don't compare. I don't even know if they have any history like that. You understand? But what I do know is you don't hear stories about them being enslaved 15 million, 5.5 million slaves. They were enslaved, put in boats. You understand? But what we're reading is actual facts. This is from a professor, a historian, that actually studied and did this, and he's bringing it out right here. While natives have been forced into slavery and servitude as early as 1636, it was not until King Philip's War that natives were enslaved in large numbers. Fisher wrote in a study, the 1675 to 1676 war-pitted Native American leader King Philip, also known as Matacombe, and his allies against the English colonial settlers. Let me see more. All right. I think that's it right there. That's all we need, right? The point is what? The biggest slave event that happened with ships happened to so-called black people, so-called Native Americans. You understand? When I say Native Americans, I'm talking about the Aztecs, I'm talking about the Arawak Indians. You understand? They were enslaved by Christopher Columbus, put in boats, taken back to Spain. You understand? So-called Mayans, all these other American Indians, right? Different categorized with different names. I'm just saying Native Americans.
Right.
We were the ones put in ships and taken not to a place of peace, not to a place to better us, to educate us. We were put into slavery. You understand? That's who it happened to. You can go and find a slave trade as big as the one that happened to Native Americans, the so-called black people of another nation. You're not going to find it,
right?
Because it never happened. But who did it happen to? Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans. You understand? And by the same people. Why? Because we're reading out the Bible. You understand? So this shows what? If you're someone who does not know this, you're someone who has doubts, this should help you understand who the real Israelites are. Who are the people that were with Moses, that were in Egypt being oppressed? It wasn't white people. It wasn't Asians. It wasn't Arabs. It was the people who fit the curses today. That's what you have to go by. You have to go by actual facts. You can't just go off what you think, how you feel. You got to look at the facts. And we just looked at the facts, right? And the facts show that we're the ones who fit these curses. We didn't even dig deep into history. You understand? This is not even a deep dig.
A fraction.
This is like not even a fraction. This is like barely scratching the surface. But it's already a lot.
Right.
It's enough. You understand? Now listen, you can go and research more. You understand? You'll come to find, just like the man before us in IHPK did, it's undeniable. It's undeniable proof who the real children of God are. Go ahead.
So like they've even found artifacts right here in the Americas, right, of supposed Native American artifacts.
Yeah.
With Hebrew.
You got the what is it? Salak. I know. I'm trying to remember the name of it. The
Decalogue.
The Newark stones, right? That's the stones that with Moses, right? I believe it was found in the grave site of a Native American.
Right.
Right. They digged up. There was a Native American buried, and they found these artifacts, I believe, within the grave, and it was Moses with the Assyrian Hebrew written on it, representing the Ten Commandments. Right. You have the what else do you have? There's a couple of them.
Yeah.
You understand? I'm trying to remember the names of them. You understand? But that's even more evidence, just because like Why did they have that? You understand?
Right.
There's even you can look into if I could real quick. So you can look into the history of the Native Americans. The woman, they would actually keep the law of Moses, the law of the Most High, when it came to their woman. When their woman would get on their flower, they would separate their woman from their area where they were, take her to her own little teepee.
Right.
You understand? Let her be there until her time of her flower or her period was over. And when they would go and give her food, they would be very careful not to touch her. Why? Because they still carried some culture that dripped down to them after generation and generation. Because you got to remember, the Israelites, they fled the Assyrian Empire. You understand? The 10 tribes of Israel, which today are known as so-called Latinos, right? Brazilians, Hondurans. The 10 tribes of Israel, we were in slavery in Assyria. This is in the book of Apocrypha. And we fled Assyria. This is before Christ was on the scene. You understand? This is before Christ was on the scene. We had left Assyria, came to a land where no man dwelt. That's what it says in the Bible.
Right.
You understand? And what land did we come to? When you look at the artifact that the brother just said, we came to the Americas, because you don't find Asians with artifacts with Hebrew written on it with the 10 Commandments. You understand? You don't go into their areas and find Assyrian ancient Hebrew. You do find it amongst the Native Americans. You understand? They found coins in Michigan, a coin with the Hebrew on it. How did it get here? You understand? Yeah, no sweat.
What's it called? They try to disprove it.
Yeah.
Every time they try to say, "Oh no, this was fabricated," or try to say it's not real, it's not legitimate.
It's not real, it's not legitimate.
Right.
But you can be a man if you're a woman. We support you changing your gender. Right. That we approve. We approve that. We approve and we stand for the right of your child changing his gender at a young age. Listen, that's what America allows. That's fine. But just understand, when they try to disprove that the natives had nothing to do with the artifacts that they find among them, like the Newark Holy Stones, and they disprove it, you got to understand, these are the same people who are telling me that my child can choose his gender. You understand? That's what you got to understand. These are the same people who lynched my forefathers. You understand me? So now you can do the research. I've done my research. I know those are real artifacts.
Right.
You understand? Now, how did they get here? They were brought by the Israelites when they left Assyria. Because here's another thing. The only lands at that time that were not inhabited by man, the only land was America.
Right.
There wasn't no other land that was uninhabited. The only land was America that was not inhabited. So that's where we had to come to. You understand?
Yes, like sir, what's his name? Christopher Columbus. He used the Apocrypha.
Hey, shalom, y'all. Shalom, y'all.
Hey, Shalom, y'all. Shalom.
Hold
on, give me.
Yeah, like Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
He used the Apocrypha to look for the Israelites, because he read in Second Esdras, right, the passage where it says this is where the 10 tribes went.
Yeah.
And what's it called? He identified this land, the Americas, as Arsareth, right, as it's written in the Apocrypha.
Right.
And if you check in the Jewish Encyclopedia, right, it says Arsareth. This is the land that Christopher Columbus identified, right, as the Americas.
Exactly.
Right.
You understand?
So like even the so-called Jewish man knows all this. So like all of them know, right?
Yeah. But you know, of course they're gonna look at you like you're crazy. It's not gonna be pushed, because why would they want the world to know that the people that they put in slavery,
to know who they are?
These people are God's people. People will go crazy, it would be chaos. If they truly knew and understood that the people that they look down on and despise and hate and see destroyed in these streets in America, and if they truly knew sincerely that we were the God's chosen people, it would be chaos.
Right.
You understand? It would be chaos all over the damn street for many reasons. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, for our brothers, right? Judite brothers. I think it was Captain Yatsazar, I think. Or I think it was Mashak, Captain Mashak, I think. He was bringing out that if you go to the capital of this country and you go into the library or the archives, right, that it shows the maps of where they took the brothers, right, and that place was called the Kingdom of Judah, right, and that the slaves, right, that they were bringing, they had Hebrew names, right, like they were recording, right, all the people that they were capturing. And identifying them, oh, this is so and so, right? And basically, like they know that the blacks and Hispanics, right? We're the same people, right? But they want to separate us at the same time, destroy us.
Right. Damn right. You understand? So with that, that's the end of the class, man. The water to everybody who tuned in. All right, make sure you tune in to class tomorrow, Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The ISPK cookout is coming up October 28th. October 28th, we're having a cookout out here in San Bernardino, California. Everybody's invited. Bring your family, bring your children. We're gonna have a great time. It's a host for the community. Make sure y'all here. All right, with that, shalom.